Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the Computer Blitz Chess Championship in 2023. We're now in the semi-final stage of this beautiful chess event and we're following now an epic game played by two arch enemies, Stockfish 15 and Lc0. So the cool part about this game is that we'll see the beautiful Austrian attack of the Pirc defense. So here Stockfish will pull off really one of the best methods to beat the Pirc defense. In my opinion, the Austrian attack is perfectly fine. I had really good success with it. But of course, when Stockfish is playing this beautiful attack, then it seems that Stockfish is playing a different sport. As I said, I find many times opportunities how to win the game, but how Stockfish is playing this kind of an opening is really different. Be prepared. This is again sick brutal chess. This is simply chess from another dimension. So let's see now the game. Stockfish with the white pieces, open with the move e4. We have d6 by Lc0, the Pirc defense, d4, knight to f6, knight to c3, protecting the pawn on e4, g6 standard line, and now after move f4 we have now the so-called Austrian attack. The idea is clear. We want to play this e5 move. This e5 move creates of course spaces, it creates of course an attacking method, it creates of course a beautiful piece activity, and then you have several of course tactical opportunities to go into the game. So here in the continuation, bishop to g7, knight to f3, kingside castling, bishop to d3 by Stockfish 15, knight to c6. It's a preparation by Lc0 to launch the e5 breakthrough. I think the common defensive method by black is the move e5. It's a move that black wants to play in every Pirc defense because it creates, I think, many times also a symmetrical pawn structure. So this e5 move you can really expect by black to be played. But of course, white created the spaces in the beginning just in order to push the pawn on e5, and that's of course what Stockfish is doing. e5 comes of course now with a beautiful attack. So in the continuation, Lc0 played knight to h5, hitting the pawn on f4. The problem is now g4 is not working because this square is taken by the bishop, so that's why here after move bishop to e3, Lc0 continue with the move f6, which is continuing the pressure of course around the square e5, but it of course also liberates now the long diagonal for the light square bishop. Now bishop to c4 comes with a beautiful tempo. So that's why e6 by Lc0, covering now this long diagonal, and it seems so that g4 is maybe now an opportunity, but actually g4 is not working in this particular position. Many of us, I think, would be greedy, would immediately launch this g4 attack, but actually black can defend his position with this move, with this idea. F takes e5, and you play now of course g takes h5, but now of course black continues with this method. The e takes d4 creates of course a fork against the knight on c3 and also against the bishop on e3. Probably white would continue in this position with something like h takes g6. We pick up the bishop, you pick up the pawn here, but now after king to h8 the king is secured, the king is perfectly fine, and in my opinion this should be a much better position for black, especially because of the beautiful bishop pair. And also notice that the king on e1 is simply stuck in the center. And also very important thing here to say is that black has 3 pawns in the center of the board, so if these pawns are rolling, this could be also a messed up position here for white, especially because of this d5 attack. I think d5 would be the crucial move here. So this line is not working here for white. So that's why from move e6, g4 is so far not an opportunity. So that's why Stockfish played e takes d6. If you play c takes d6 now g4 could be a beautiful method, because now this idea knight takes f4 is not working. Bishop to f4 was simply taken. Now e5 is not an opportunity because of this beautiful activity by the light square bishop. So that's why you have to play now queen to d6, and that's exactly what Lc0 did. Again, g4 is too slow because your pawn on f4 is also hanging, so that's why Stockfish plays a brilliant f5, and this is now already the stunner, the surprising element here in this beautiful game. f5, I'm not sure how many of us would play this move. Obviously it's an idea because you cannot pick up with e takes f5 because of the beautiful bishop's activity, but let's see what happens for instance if you play g takes f5. If you play g takes f5, then the game becomes really wild. Then knight to h4 creates a discovered attack against the knight. In order to survive this attack, you have to play f4 here from black's perspective. This wasn't played in the game, but I think we have to discuss this g takes f5 move by black for sure. So after move f4, here black also continues the counterattack against the bishop on e3. Now white retreats on f2. Black continues with f3, hopes finally to liberate the knight on f4. Now white continues with queen to f3. Still the knight is hanging, and now white could be challenged with this idea, knight to d4, but this is not working. This is simply too slow. Actually, white can ignore the threat around the square c2. White can actually pick up here the pawn on the knight on h5. Black can pick up now the pawn on c2, but now we play a calm king to e2. Here knight takes a1 would be probably black continuation, but after rook to a1, notice that this is not good here for black. Bishop to c5 is a threat. Many pieces are already developed by white. Okay, white's king is on e2, but it will not stay there forever. King to f1, king to g1 could solve every positional problem of white's king. So as I said, the knights are already very dangerous. This one in the center of the board, especially also this knight on h4. In the continuation, maybe we can try rook to d1, kick away the queen. As we said, bishop to c5 is already a threat, so this is not good here for black. So you see, after move f5, g takes f5 is not a possibility here for black. So that's why Lila played knight to a5, which really makes sense, hitting this annoying bishop on c4. But now comes another stunner here by Stockfish 15. Stockfish played now the beautiful f takes g6. Very wild stuff, ignoring the threat, ignoring the attack of the knight on c4. So here Lila continued with, of course, knight takes c4. Stockfish plays now here g takes h7. The problem is now king to h7 is not working. We play queen to d3 and we get our piece back, and the king is naked here. The king has already many weaknesses on light war, so this is not working. So after move g takes h7, king to h8 was played by Lila c0, and now comes another beautiful follow-up here by Stockfish. Stockfish plays now the beautiful knight to h4. For instance, you have to now do something. Knight to g6 is already a serious threat, and also the knight on h5 is hanging. So Lila plays the only line now, plays now knight takes e3. Stockfish continues with queen to h5, and there is now immediately a threat of knight to g6 checkmate. For instance, if you play something like knight to c2, we simply play king to d1. You can pick up now the rook, but now actually knight to g6 would be really monstrous checkmate here. So really wild stuff. After move queen to h5 that Stockfish played, Lila has this defensive resource, plays now knight takes g2, deflects now finally this knight from the square g6, and look at this now. All of this tactical mess to get to this position. Stockfish has now 6 pawns on the board. Okay, we have to say these are double pawns. These are not, of course, optimal pawns. On the other hand, Lila c0 has only 5 pawns on the board. So Stockfish gained the pawn, but we have to say Stockfish has now to secure the king by castling. Stockfish has to make something with this king in the central position. And also what's black's problem is still this idea, as we said, knight to h4, knight to g6 is the serious threat. And also black needs now finally to develop some pieces. Black needs now to activate somehow the bishops. Look at this, both of these bishops are paralyzed, are blocked out by its own pawns. This is not good, of course, for the bishops, but we have to say it also, if the bishops somehow get into the game, then this could be a playable position for black, especially because we'll probably see queenside castling, and then of course we have opportunities maybe to open some spaces here on the queen side. So it's now really a double-edged line for both sides. So in the continuation, bishop to d7 with the idea of bishop to c6 or bishop to e8, hitting the queen also on h5. Stockfish continued with queenside casting. We have now f5. Finally really liberating now this long diagonal for the dashboard bishop. We have now king to b1 here by Stockfish, and now bishop to e8, hitting the queen. The queen should not be tolerated on this beautiful square. As we said, knight to h4 and knight to g6 was now the serious threat. So here Stockfish continued with queen to g5. We have now queen to d8. Lila is hoping to force a trades of queens, which could be very good, I think, for black, because simplifying is perfectly fine here. As we said, okay, you have 2 pawns here, but this is almost like you have 1 pawn. If this game reaches maybe the endgame stage with these 2 pawns here on the king side, black could have also good chances in the potential endgame. So as I said, white still has to play here really the best moves in order to make something out of this position. Stockfish continued, of course, with Queen to g3 didn't allow some simplifications here by Lc0. We have now queen to f6, we have rook to f1, and now after rook to d8, Stockfish included now this knight in a beautiful way into the game. Knight to e4 is perfectly fine here, because the knight on c3 was a little bit out of game, we have to say it. Now with the move knight to e4, Stockfish immediately improved the position of the knight. The queen had to step back, and now look at this. Actually, the worst knight on c3 became now the best minor piece on the board, hitting the weak score on e6, and creates, of course, also several threats around light scores here. So really stunning maneuver also by Stockfish here. So Lila continues with the only move, I think, e5, and this is now the brilliant idea also by Lila. Lila is hoping to somehow open the position for the bishops. The bishops have to breathe, I think, in this types of open games. So now with the move e5, Stockfish is also get challenged also on the d file. So now when the queen is maybe included also here in the attack, there could be some problems here around the square b2. So in the game, knight to h4 was played by Stockfish 15, hitting the pawn on f5, but also creating new threats around the square g6. For instance, if this bishop moves, then there are of course checkmate threats or fork ideas on square g6. So here the rook to d4 was played by Lc0. Rook takes d4, e takes d4, and now a very important move by Stockfish, rook to e1. Here actually knight to f5 is not working. Knight to f5, many of us I think would play, but this is game over almost for white, because d3 would be the stunning move. Look at this. This would be really wild. You cannot pick up the queen, of course. You're getting lost, get destroyed here on the f file, so this is not working. After move d3, you have several choices. You can play, of course, now rook to e1, but it's simply too slow. Queen to d7 is going to happen. We have a double attack against the knight. You can maybe step back here to h4, trying again your idea around the square g6, but now look at this. d2 and the pawn is rolling. You play rook to d1, rook to f1 is winning the game immediately here for black. So look at this. Imagine you have this kind of a position and you mess it up. I'm sure many of us would be frustrated with these two powerful knights, with this beautiful rook activity, and now you play something stupid like knight to f5 and the game is over. Really already stunning position. So that's why Stockfish plays the correct rook to e1, hitting the queen, including the rook into the game, and also getting use of the only open file of the beautiful e file. So queen to f6 by Lc0, rook to e6. The rook is coming now in a beautiful way into the game. The queen has to step back. We have now rook to g6. You cannot take, of course, bishop to g6, because knight to g6 is a beautiful checkmate. We have seen it before. Now after move queen to d5, now comes a new stunner here by Stockfish. And I'm not sure if anyone would really even consider this next move by Stockfish. I'm not sure if I ever would play this move. Now comes really stunning, but also a dirty move, b3. Really wild stuff. So what's the point about b3? The problem that I see immediately about the pawn move b3 is that probably d3 is going to happen, and maybe black can get some kind of an activity with the dark square bishop and with the queen, and you could get even checkmate threats on dark square. So this b3, I was really curious what's going to happen if d3 happens immediately. If, for instance, black continues with the move d3. Actually, there is now the stunning rook takes g7, and the problem is now you don't have time to play something like d takes c2. After king to c2, there is simply no good check by black. You can play a couple of checks, but no perpetuals, and you cannot take, of course, also here the rook on g7. You get the beautiful discovered, but also this beautiful double check, and also the fork here around the square fa. So this is not working. So after move rook takes g7, after a potential d3 move, you can maybe try the move d2, but now look at this. Rook to g8 is here winning the game. Really immortal tactical sequence here by Stockfish 15. This wasn't played in the game, but I was really curious what's going to happen after move d3. Look at this. Rook to g8, rook takes g8, h takes g8. You have to pick up now, and now again a discovered check against the king. You have to step back, and now we can pick up this pawn on d2, queen to d2, but of course we have to say it. Black's king is simply naked. this is not working. You can maybe again play a couple of checks, but never really perpetual. So from this point on, the game's a one-way ticket simply in White's favor. So see, b3 is actually a brilliant move here by Stockfish 15. Lila continued with queen to d7. We have now knight to e6, hitting now the bishop on g7. We have now this idea d3, but now after queen to d3, Stockfish simplified the game enough. After queen to d3, c takes d3, we have now reached the fully endgame stage. And this was really wild. So you see, all of this mess, all of this brutal attacks just to create this kind of a position where the rook is still hanging on g6. Of course, you cannot take. Bishop to g6 is not working here. We'll play simply knight to g6. Again, the fork. You can play knight to h7, but now we pick up this one. You can pick up this one, and white would be in a favorable endgame with an extra piece. So this is also not working here for black. So after move c takes d3, Lila continued with rook to f6. We have rook takes g7, rook takes e6, and now Stockfish grabbed another pawn. Rook takes c7. So we have now f4. Lila gets use of the only attacking chance now, this beautiful pawn move f4. We have now rook to c4, and after bishop to b5, now again a beautiful move here by Stockfish. Stockfish plays the beautiful rook to d4. Rook to f4 is also here an opportunity, but I really loved more this idea because you're keeping your winning chances higher when you don't trade off so many pawns. So I think this was a good choice by Stockfish, because now after bishop to d3, still it's obviously a better game for white, but I like more this position when there are more pawns on the board. So Stockfish says, you're not going to take out my pawn, I'll not take yours, but I don't want to miss up my winning chances. When there are more pawns, I have really more chances to win the game. So here, king to h7 was played by Lila0, a4, kicking with the bishop, bishop to c6, and now Stockfish pick up the pawn on f4, rook to e2, knight to f5, we have rook to h2, and it seems, so look at this, Lila plays the only defensive moves. Now Stockfish is only up one pawn, which is now also hard to win. I think many of us would struggle here, many of us could maybe find the best move, but now let's see now how Stockfish approach into the second game. So knight to e7, hitting the bishop on c6, bishop to h1, we have rook to king to c1, we have king to g7, knight to c8, attacking now the pawn, we have now a6, knight to d6, again also attacking the pawn, hoping to include more attackers around the square b7. So king to g6, rook to b4, you have to protect now the pawn with rook to h7, or rook to b6 creates of course many times some discovered check possibilities. So here that's why king to g5, king to d2, getting a path for the king. Now when the rook is stuck to the defense of the pawn on b7, now finally white's king can breathe, and white's king can be included into the attack. So bishop to c6, knight to f5, king to knight to c4, pardon me, king to f5. We have now knight to a5. We're trying here of course to play knight to c6, grab all of this pawn, so that's why bishop to d5 keeps of course also the knight a little bit paralyzed, keeps it out of game. But now of course the king is coming closer into the attack. So rook to d7, rook to h6, king to g5, rook to h8, we have rook to c7, and now king to b4. If of course again this rook leaves the protection of the c file, maybe this king can be also included into the attack. So we have now rook to d7, rook to b8, again threatening some attacks against the pawn on b7. We have now bishop to h1, king to c3, and after king to f6, rook to h8, bishop to d5, and now finally the knight is getting again back into the game. So it's, as I said, not so easy to win this kind of an endgame. You have to be patient, you have to improve first your pieces and then strike in the correct moment. In the game, rook to g7 was played by Lila0, rook to h5, hitting the bishop, bishop to c6, and now finally the king is sneaking in on dark square. So we have now bishop to c6, pardon me, bishop to f3, rook to h6, king to e7. Now Stockfish simply pushed the pawn further. We have rook to g5, knight to e5. We have now bishop to d5, and now a beautiful move a5 keeps of course all of these pawns on dark squares, which is the crucial thing. When you keep the pawns on dark squares, they cannot be of course attacked by the light square bishop, and again we have a clear path now for the king on dark squares. So rook to g1, we have knight to c4, rook to g5, knight to b6, bishop to g8, and now d5. So you see Stockfish is making further progress. What can black do now? Here the game bishop to d5 was played by by Lila C0. But even if you play something like, I don't know, rook to G3, if you're trying somehow to keep the king out of game, trying to make it always defensive, stuck to the defense of the pawn on b3. Actually, king to c4 can be played. You have to play again a bishop move. Now we play check. Now we reroute the knight. And now again we get the king closer. So, as I said, it's a slow run. You're not win this game very easily in 5 or 10 moves. But with every move, basically, white is improving the minor piece activity. So that's why after move d5, Lila c0 decided to simplify the game till the end. After bishop to d5, knight to d5, rook to d5, but now rook to h7 is coming into the game, and now Stockfish grabs now this pawn. And it wouldn't be such a huge problem if the king would be maybe closer to the edge of the board. Maybe this could be a drawish chance, but when the king is out of game, notice that the rook is paralyzing the potential route for the king, so the king is simply stuck here, cannot be included in the defense. After rook to b7, king to e5 was played by Lila c0. You cannot of course play king to c6. You getting this one, you lose another pawn, so this is not working. King to e5 had to be played. Now we have rook to e7, king to f5, and now after rook to c7, again the king is more and more paralyzed. So let's go back. Let's go to this critical moment. You see, Stockfish calculated everything here because the serious threat was the move rook to b6. So that's why Lila had to play king to e5, because after potential rook to b6, again, at least you have this resource. You have the move rook to d6, but this was really beautiful idea by Stockfish. Rook to e7 first. You have to step back, and now, as I said, rook to c7 is now paralyzing even further the king out of the game. Now the king cannot even get closer to the b file. So in the game, rook to d8, we have now rook to c6, rook to a8. You have to now protect the pawn, and now the king is again free to play. King to e5, b4, and actually this position Lila played rook to c8. That's exactly what the engines are doing many times, because the engines are not looking the games that we are looking like, because it's the same for Lila. If Lila gives up the rook and maybe sense there is a checkmate threat, or if Lila plays another move, but again it's a checkmate threat. So basically Lila is not separating any moves. But let's see now what happens. Even if we play king to e4 or something, then the king would probably get closer. We play something like b5, a takes b5, and again, as I said, the rook is paralyzing, is simply cutting off the king from the attack, and now we simply push this pawn further. Again, we have a promotion, so this is still also a completely winning game. So that's why after move b4, as we said, rook to c8 is maybe for our humans a worse move, but in my opinion, nothing dramatically changed. Till white was always winning in the game. So rook to c8, king to e6. Stockfish simply pushed the pawn further, promoted a new queen. After a couple more moves, we have now this method, and Stockfish delivered the beautiful checkmate here on h1. So incredible game by Stockfish 15. Really beautiful Austrian attack with cool tactical elements. But you see, all these tactical elements are happening just in order to get a good end game. Still you have to struggle. In my opinion, these games that we follow now recently by Stockfish, by Lila c0, are really instructive, because they're not won immediately with some brutal tactical sequences. No, they reach many times the end game stage, in which can learn, I think, good patterns, good ideas in the end game. So really cool game here played by Stockfish 15 and Lila c0. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series with some more games played by Stockfish, Lila c0, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.